Now, without further ado, I'm going to bring out Angela Ard. She is the Associate Professor of English and Journalism at Boston College. She's going to moderate the discussion with Mr. Barry Jenkins. Please give her a round of applause. Now this brother, I want you guys to stand up and give him the respect that is due. This is, first of all, Moonlight. How many, all y'all saw Moonlight? I'm not gonna go through his whole dossier, but Moonlight was brilliant. And it was funny, the first time I saw it was at a SAG screening in New York, and my girlfriend was like, I'm gonna take you to see Moonlight. I'm like, what, Moonlight, what is this? She goes, let's just go see it. Blown away, amazing. Now he's doing If Beale Street Could Talk. This is my favorite James Baldwin novel, and we saw the clips before you guys came in. You're gonna love it too. So Martha's Vineyard, get on your feet and welcome Academy Award-winning director, Barry Jenkins.
Thank y'all. So where is all the wine, since they call it Martha's Vineyard? I'm just curious. I didn't see no grapes and stuff when we was driving there from the airport. Wait, what'd you say? Hey. I'm sorry, Dr. Arts.
I'm looking for the wine too.
I've never been to Martha's Vineyard. It's a pleasure to be here. We're still working on this film, so the things we're gonna show y'all nobody has seen. I'm very curious to see how they look and sound. As I was in New York this morning doing color correction, I'll be in LA on Monday doing some more sound mixing, but when they called us up and said that they wanted to show some scenes from the film, what I said was, does that mean the president is gonna get to watch these clips? Because I know, I know the Obamas, have a place here. They probably got the one vineyard nobody's allowed to go on to, but because of that, I was like, yeah, of course, I would love to come out and show some things. And so we're gonna sit up here and talk a bit and watch some stuff. We're actually gonna start by showing the teaser for the film. Even though the film is not done, August 2nd was the anniversary of James Baldwin's birth. And so we wanted to, because people have been asking me what's going on with the movie, did y'all actually shoot it? So we wanted to release some proof that we did shoot it. And we packaged that into what I think is a love letter. I think a representation of the film we made, but also a love letter to Mr. Baldwin. So I think we'll kick things off by showing this teaser for If Beale Street Could Talk.
All right, so good evening. First, I want to start just thanking the organizers for having me here. It's a great pleasure to be here with Barry Jenkins and with all of you, so thanks for coming out. Barry, my first question is really just a question about process, the process of adaptation. You've talked about with Moonlight, how that story so resonated with you, Terrell McCraney's play of growing up in the projects in Miami, that it was easy to connect to that voice and bring that play to the screen. Talk to us a little bit about Baldwin. What is it about Baldwin? What is it about this novel that drew you to it?
Yeah, part of it was the first job I ever had in Hollywood. I worked for Harpo Films. I worked for Miss Winfrey way back in 2003, 2004. And Ms. Winfrey's company, Harpo Films, they only do adaptations exclusively. So my first training in film, I was a director's assistant on the Harpo film, Their Eyes Are Watching God, which was adapted by Susan Laurie Parks, I believe, and directed by Darnell Martin. So right away, I was getting this sort of groundwork and working in adaptations. And then Moonlight happened, working from Terrell's material, and as you said, we both literally grew up blocks from one another, had the same experience. Both our moms went through this experience being addicted to crack cocaine. And then If Beale Street Could Talk came along, and I wrote these scripts at the same time, and they're both adaptations, which even though I have a college degree, I don't think of very often. I'll make that connection, but I remember working on them literally over the span of 2 months. I wrote both these screenplays and thinking, Here's a depiction of one black family. This is the black family I grew up in. My mom, it's true, was addicted to crack cocaine. Here's another depiction of a black family, and I think they both kind of coexist within the spectrum of the black experience in America. Neither one of them can speak for every black American's experience, and yet, if they come through me, they'll be coming through the same voice. And so here is one mother, and here's another mother. Here's one father, here's another father. One father happens to be a surrogate father who deals drugs in the corner, and yet he's still loving. And this other father, played by Colman Domingo in this film, actually has a job. He's a longshoreman, and he's just as loving. So I approached them the same way. And the beauty, I'm glad we just showed this teaser and you asked that question, because to me, the beauty of Baldwin was the language is visual. And so putting together a teaser for this film was very easy, because you just slap Baldwin on it and you got visual poetry. That's not me, that's Baldwin, And I felt like if I could insert myself enough where I wasn't getting in the way of James Baldwin, the adaptation would work. And that was how we approached it.
So I did have a question about the structure of the novel. There are all these flashbacks.
I have a question about the structure of the novel, too. I've been trying to answer them for 9 months.
Oh, so that was my question to you. Like, how are you working through that? So you're still working through it?
Moonlight has what people call a radical structure, because it's told in these 3 acts as a triptych. I guess the radicalism is in the fact that 3 different actors play the same character. This is way, way beyond. It's like I'm in elementary school in Moonlight compared to the structure of this film. But I think anybody who's read Baldwin will recognize that the power is in the beauty and the shock of the metaphors, and also in the elliptical quality of the stories that he's weaving. In this one in particular, because it's told through Tish, she's becoming a woman, at a rate that's faster than anybody's coming of age should have to evolve. And because of that, her consciousness is slipping through all these different phases. So rather than take the book and try and force it into a structure that was much more linear, I thought we could just lean in. And if there was a way to really bring people into the body of Tish through this actress, Kiki Layne, who's amazing, that we would succeed in the same way the novel did. So I didn't try and break it or reinvent it. I just kind of went with it.
Let's look at the next clip.
So we're going to show this clip real quick. I got to set it up just a little bit. So how many people in here have read the book, If Beale Street Could Talk? See, this is how I know on where I'm at, because that's more hands than I've ever seen go up when I ask that question in the audience. Much respect to y'all. This clip that's being set up, you're going to see some of the nonlinear quality of the piece. It's going to be a 10-minute clip. This will be the longest clip we'll show. But I'll set it up just by saying that before this scene, the scene you see at the top of the teaser where she says, "Mama, there's something I got to tell you," she tells her mother that she is pregnant. She has told everyone but Papa. So as you watch this scene, you're about to see the whole family brace for Papa to receive this news. And without ado, the first clip from, yes, that's the reaction I wanted. First clip from If Beale Street Could Talk. I wish your
That'd be great. Thank you. Okay.
WWE, written by James Baldwin.
There's a lot to unpack there. So my first question is about music and your use of music in this scene. The novel clearly has a lot of musical references, right? The title is referring to Beale Street Blues. Throughout the text, there are all these references to B.B. King and Aretha Franklin and Marvin Gaye. So Baldwin is kind of hammering home on this idea of a blues aesthetic, right? This idea that, this meditation on works that show how black folk transcend, right, survive hard times, right? And Fonny and Tish's baby represents that, right? That's what that represents for them. So for you with music, what do you, when you think about using music for your adaptation, how's it working?
I think about how expensive all those names are that you just said. And that is why there are none of them in that scene. I mean, I'm just being real, I mean, you can write Aretha Franklin all you want in a novel, but we cannot afford to license Aretha Franklin. But the essence of what you're saying is true. I think for us, especially, I wanted to show that scene. It's a 10-minute clip. You don't normally show a 10-minute clip, but the language, to me, contained all the things that are wrapped up in the music, that are wrapped up in the spirit of the blues, the spirit of jazz. And we felt like we were not going to alter the language. And as you'll see a couple of the other clips that we show, some of the things that Mr. Baldwin wrote this book was published in 1974, were very truthful about his thoughts of what American society was, how it felt, how it functioned, and how black folks in communal spaces amongst themselves talked about it. Now, when we come back to the other side of this scene, there is an Al Green needle drop for the good times, which we felt like we had to put our foot down and get that. But for me, it was about taking the actual songs, because you're right, he references, and he throws some shade on a few other people in that book too. But it was about taking the feeling and the essence of that, and then finding songs that we could actually afford that would function well in the film and function the same way.
When I first saw this clip, the first thing that struck me were the colors, right? How vibrant the color palette is.
And we ain't even done yet, man. It's breaking my heart for y'all to see this, because we ain't done yet. But when we done, and it's like a DCP and everything, and 6K and all that, then the colors gonna be popping. But yeah, they look good right now too. Thank you.
They're gorgeous, right? And if you remember Moonlight, the colors in Moonlight, they look like the ocean, right? They look like the sky. It looks like moonlight. Can you talk to us about this color palette, right, and what you were hoping to achieve with it?
Yeah, I'm from Miami. I've made Moonlight, Medicine for Melancholy, and now this film. The first two films were set in places where I lived, so I knew exactly what those places looked like, how the light functioned. With this, I'm not from Harlem, and I haven't spent a lot of time there. And we went around location scouting for these apartments, these brownstones, and some apartment buildings as well. And we ended up at this apartment building where Thurgood Marshall lived, like as a young lawyer in Harlem. And just the colors, and it wasn't that the place was a museum, but it was one of the last footholds where you go into this building. It's like a 20-story building, and like 90% of it is black, and 90% of it is still black owned from the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. Of course, people are trying to buy them out, but they're holding all these spaces, and so they're not renovating them because of that. And the colors, the patina in those spaces, was just so rich and warm that we thought, oh, even if we have to build a set, we're going to build it in the image of these spaces. And so that's where the color palette for the movie really took root.
One last question. So in this particular scene, and for those who know the novel, you'll see that the adaptation is quite faithful. But there is one subtle difference in this very beginning. That class tension that we see between the two families, all that shade that's going on. In the novel, it's even deeper. It's compounded by a really pernicious colorism, right? Fonny's family are called mulattoes, they're very light-skinned, and they think they are superior because of that. Can you talk a little bit about why that theme is muted here?
Yeah, it's one of the few times where you would hear a Hollywood director say the character was written light-skinned, but I cast it dark-skinned. And it was just, but I don't need to say that because that wasn't the situation. The situation was the actors came in and auditioned, and I was trying to be very, very faithful to the book because I think it gives it this extra layer of something when these two families sit down. Instead, we did it with clothing and hair because Mrs. Hunt walks in with that hair because we had this, so this is one of the best things about making this movie, man. The same hair person who used to work on 227 as an assistant, which was Regina King's first job, also did the hair on Beale Street. And so, and I said to Dr. Ken, when those women walk through that door, I need you to look right at their hair. And these things that I can't do, this whole idea of colorism, all these things, embody it, put it in the class, put it in the way that the quality, like the hem of the dress, the starch, the gloves, oh, Mrs. Hunt's gloves, my goodness, and the hair. And so we put all those things into that. But what I will say is Stephan James came in and auditioned to be Fonny. And when you see the full film, you will see he is Fonny. And he is just darker skinned than Fonny was written in the book. And from that point on, because he just did such a great job, I felt like I had to have more fidelity to the actor than I had to have to the source material. And it gave me the opportunity to work with Aunjanue Ellis as Mrs. Hunt and Michael Beach, because I did want to still bring a little bit of caramel, something to the family. And there's three of them, there's Fonny, Sheila, and Adrian, so there was a way to show how the genes, sort of a little bit of this and all of that. But I just wanted to work with Aunjanue, and because we cast Stephan, I was allowed to work with Aunjanue Ellis as Mrs. Hunt. And as y'all saw from that little taste, she is amazing. Because when we come back in from that second half of the scene, when she says, and who was gonna raise this baby? The father. Anyway, I mean, I've been working on the movie so long, I just quote it, but we did keep one of those because Baldwin, intellectual, academic, Harvard, Yale, whatever, Baldwin was hood. And we allow the hoodness of the second half of this conversation. We give it full reach. And so one of the funniest lines we kept, even though the actress isn't as light-skinned as Baldwin wrote in the book. Long-winded answer to say, we cast the best actors. All right, so we're going to show this next clip, which won't be as long as the first clip. It'll actually be the shortest clip. It's only 2 minutes. But in adapting this book, there's certain passages that just don't have anything to do with the narrative. They function with the characters, but they don't drive the story. And I thought I have to have at least one or two of these. And this is one of those ones where I realized I could not write this. One, I'm not James Baldwin. Two, I'm not a woman. But I also felt like I hadn't seen this. And I felt like I'd seen my aunt sit around and have this conversation, or a conversation that functioned in this way. So I want y'all to watch this clip real quick, and then I'll explain how I had to force it into the film, so to speak. Yeah. Like I said, Baldwin was on something, and that on something was his eyes were wide open. And in making this adaptation, when you adapt a book, the book is 200 pages. It's a lot of text. I think the script is maybe, if you translated it to like single block text, maybe like 30 pages. And so it's important to decide what you keep in and what you take out. There were certain, I'll say, inalienable truths about the black experience circa the period that he wrote this novel that I felt like these things have to be in the film, and the perfume counter functions that way.
You, in introducing the clip, you actually hit on the question that I had, which is a little bit about what was it like for you as a black man to tell a woman's story? Because even though this is a love story about Tish and Fonny, it's in Tish's voice. Mm-hmm. So that was a scene that you felt like you could not translate, but the other scenes, what about those?
Yeah, I leaned on Regina, I leaned on Kiki, and I trusted the text. I did a lot of research about the process of Baldwin writing this book, and there's a book that came out, I'm gonna forget the author's name. This woman was writing about all these iconic works that have happened. She just happened to be around all these people, and she was around Baldwin at the time that he wrote this novel. And she told this story of him being at his home in the south of France, and Toni Morrison being there. And Baldwin comes down one night, and he's like, I'm going to read you a story. And he reads If Beale Street Could Talk to Toni, to Miss Morrison. Oh my goodness. Hey, y'all don't tell her I said that. He reads If Beale Street Could Talk to Miss Morrison, and he's waiting because he's terrified, did I write this young black woman well? And she says to him, you did good, Jimmy. You did good. I'm quoting her. I'm not calling James Baldwin Jimmy. She said, you did good, Jimmy. And because of that, I felt like I didn't need to translate Baldwin's translation of what it was like to be a young black woman in America. He had already done that work. But if any of the actors, if Regina, if Kiki, if Teyonah came to me and said, I'm not sure about this, then my job was to listen, because they knew more than I did about that experience.
So did they do that? Because ideas about gender have changed since 1974. Did they ever say, Baldwin didn't get this quite right?
You know what, if it did happen, and I don't want to talk publicly about it happening, if it did happen, we just had to unpack, why in the moment that he wrote this, it felt appropriate, but in the moment we were making this, it did not. And my default was always to keep it in the text. And so, there's an act of domestic violence, that happens in this book, and it happens very clearly in the adaptation in our film. And it's something that you would never, want to see today, but circa the period, it wasn't as uncommon, as it is in today's society. And so, rather than sanitize the book, in the translation, we leaned into it, and the actors did so very responsibly, I think.
Okay, yeah, that was one of my questions. So what about the next clip?
It's a tough Q&A, man. Movie ain't even came out yet. What else you got over there?
Are we done?
No, we not done. So now, part of being a director, making an adaptation, is it's often about the words. I'm going to take these words, and I'm going to put them into this place, put them into that place. What I like to do, as often as I can, is take the words completely out and just give the moment to the actors. You know, in Moonlight, there's like 5 words. You know, in this movie, there's a lot of words. Thank you. I was clowning myself there a little bit. So in Moonlight, there's like 5 words. In this movie, there's a lot of words, and yet there is a moment where I felt like Regina was strong enough that we could step back. I could remove Baldwin, I could remove myself, and just give the floor to this amazing actress. So the clip you're about to see now is where we do that. It wasn't loud enough, man. It wasn't loud enough, man. So anyway, contextually, so all these things are happening. Tish is trying to prove Fonny's innocence, and then somebody has to go to Puerto Rico to talk to this woman. Who's gonna go to Puerto Rico? Of course, the black mom is gonna go to Puerto Rico by herself. And so I said to Regina, there's all this weight on you, the matriarch of this family, and you're holding it all together, but I need you to just look at the audience and let them feel the weight that my mom, my aunt, your aunt, your cousin feels every day when they have to carry all this weight into the world. And in the run of show, when that scene appears, that is what it do. And it does it very loud, but it wasn't quite loud enough, but yeah.
So I guess I just had a response to it. I don't know if it's a question. I'm sorry. I just had a kind of a response to it. So Regina, Sharon, the character, she's trying to look older. She's trying to look like a mother for this family. In the novel, she has a shawl to make herself a little older. Here, and she goes out with that shawl to try to look like the matriarch. Here she opts to leave it behind. What's that?
This is one of the things that I talk about with Regina quite a bit. And it's a very small thing, a very small thing. This idea of the shawl and the wig, but Regina felt like this character was somebody who, over the course of the film, doesn't need any armor. And yet, at the moment when she should just be her most truthful self, she's trying to decide between these different articles of armament. And ultimately, it's actually kind of cool because the way the scene ends is not the way you see her in the very next moment when we hard cut to the next scene, but already the doubt has been sowed, you know, the doubt has started to poke through because who can carry all that weight for all those people? And I must say out loud, you know, I'm not gonna say how old Regina is or what her age is, but y'all can Google or IMDb or Wikipedia or whatever, but for an actress who's been in the game as long as she has, to look directly at an audience in a close-up for that long, you know, it's so brave, but also so powerful. I mean, she just did it. She just did it.
And when she drops the prop just to be herself, it is such a powerful moment. Yeah, she does.
I love that lady. Yeah.
Last clip.
So, and then we're gonna show this last clip featuring Paperboy. You know, it's been interesting showing these clips because the movie is nonlinear, the book is nonlinear, so you don't need a lot of context. But I'll say with this one, there's this character Daniel. Daniel is a friend of Fonny's, and Daniel has sort of been through the experience that Fonny potentially is about to go through. So Brian Tyree came into the film. We only worked with him for 2 days. And the scene you're about to see is only half, it's the second half of this. Basically, it's like Medicine for Melancholy as a 10-minute scene between Brian Tyree Henry and Stephan James. We're gonna show the last 5 minutes of it, but I'll just say you're gonna watch 2 black men who've been sitting down talking all day, and then finally one of them decides, I'm going to open up, I'm going to reveal myself. And this is as real talk gets. So. Baldwin wrote it. I ain't gonna apologize, but I'm gonna just say this is some real shit. All right, cool. Yeah.
So for that clip, I really didn't have a question.
You know, I'll say this. I was talking with my cinematographer, who is a white man, although people assume he's not a white man because he's gotten all this credit for the melanin skin in his movies and all this stuff. But he was talking about how watching this film, it was like he couldn't describe the way it made him feel. And then finally, it was like 3 days ago, because we've been working on this again. He shot it back in November. He said, you know what, I realized what it is, and this is what he said to me. He said, as a white man, I don't know what it's like to go from one moment being in this very intense situation, and then in the next moment, having to get back in touch with this side of me that wants to be loved, or that knows what love is. And he goes, and as I watch this movie, you're making me do that, because there's this 10-minute scene where these two men are having this very intense conversation, and then three beautiful people are sitting around breaking bread, saying grace, with Nina Simone singing. And he was like, I don't know how to feel about that, because I never had to feel it before. And watching the clip out of context, I don't know how the hell it made y'all feel, but I'm like, oh, that's kind of jarring, but that's how it damn should be, you know, because that's how it is. But anyway.
And that's the blues idiom, right?
And that is the blues idiom.
blues
See, this is a
story.
doctor right here.
Yeah.
That is the blues
That's it.
idiom. Yes,
That's it.
I'm gonna take that with me. All right.
Work it, use it. So, I guess in general, thinking about the entire film, I've read that you said that you feel most yourself when on set, right? When you're able to work with actors and draw from them these magical performances. So were there moments in If Beale Street Could Talk where you felt like, I'm working in my purpose, I'm doing me?
Yeah, part of it was that the last thing we shot in New York was this scene between Brian Tyree Henry and Stephan James. It was the last day of filming in New York. And I kept trying to find a way to not cut, to have the conversation go from Brian to Stephan and back. And we had tried it with a few other groupings of actors throughout the shoot. It was a 26-day shoot in New York, and we could never quite get it right. And then we started shooting this scene in a very traditional way. The camera's here, and they move the camera's there, and it was fine. I mean, the shit worked, it was fine. But then I thought, you know what, it's the last day. Let's put the slider on, and I want to start this thing where I want to move from Brian to Stephan, because I feel like I'm always talking about this spiritual transference. I think Brian's character, Daniel, has been through some very deep things, and he can't see that Fonny might go through them, but there's no doubt, because they're both young black men at this moment in America, which is like almost like a snapback kind of moment. You know, Dr. King has been taken down, you know, Malcolm X has been taken down, the Kennedys have been taken down. It's just like, you know, we're about to start building this prison industrial complex. And once you make this a business, then it becomes supply and demand. So the two of you are going to be supplied because we have demand. And so I wanted to find a way to connect the two of them. And so we put the camera on a slider, and instead of using two cameras, we used one, and we just started passing the conversation from one to the next. And there was a moment where I looked over at James and I realized, oh, this is the movie. Like, we've done it. It took 26 days. But this thing, the spiritual transference I've been looking for, here it is, between this guy who flew up from Atlanta for one day, you know, and my man Stephan James, who should not be Fonny based on the colorism in the book, but who had this thing in him that when I looked in his eyes, I saw the pain that Baldwin was writing with. So that was one of those moments. And then in the trailer, there's this scene where Homeboy's smoking. It just looks real cool when you see the word moonlight comes out of his mouth almost. That was when, you know, Fonny is a sculptor, and we shot the film, his stuff on a film set. We built on a stage, and I just felt like I looked at him and I saw this vision of him sculpting with light coming through the roof. Because if you're familiar with the book, there's a moment where Tish describes, she says, Fonny is working on the wood. It is a very soft wood. He doesn't want to defile the wood. And those words always stuck with me. And so I said to James, let's just take the roof off the set. And even though it's a basement apartment, I just want to pour the sun through the ceiling. And so we did it, and we put the camera 360 on a track, kicked everybody off the set, and Stephan just went to work. And the camera's just going around him and around him. And I just heard the subway in my head, and I thought, this is the movie. This is the movie. You know, this is James Baldwin sitting down with a cognac writing, and this is what he's feeling. I hope, I think. But I felt him in making that scene. So, yeah, every now and then it happened.
So, should I ask one more question? Should I open it up?
Oh, that's right. Y'all get to ask questions,
Yeah.
right?
One more?
But y'all ain't got no questions, right?
No, they have plenty of questions.
Oh, my man right there he shot that hand up.
So, it looks amazing. My question is from a filmmaker perspective. First, I love how you have the frame dance. To get that look, did you use vintage lenses?
No, we actually went the opposite direction. So this movie shot on the Alexa 65, which is it's like the biggest format digital camera you can use right now. Because of that, the aspect ratio is 2:1, so it's a very odd aspect ratio. It's not 2:3:9, which Moonlight was. It's not anamorphic. But we tested vintage lenses, and there was a truthfulness to them. But instead, if you saw Star Wars Rogue One, this movie was shot on the exact same lenses as Star Wars Rogue One. So very, very new, sharp digital lenses. And we relied on, there's many different aspects of the filmmaking process. Our production designer was just amazing. And so again, I said, I was in this building Thurgood Marshall lived in. I said, I want that. He brought an 85-year-old man out of retirement to build the set of Bank Street, where Daniel and where Stephan and Brian are having that conversation. A man came out of retirement to build that on a soundstage. So I think the vintage patina you're feeling, it's in all the elements, but it's not in the lenses, bruh. The lenses are as new can be, man. Super sharp.
Anyone else have a question? Right here, right behind you.
When is it supposed to come out?
It's supposed to come out. Yeah, I love it. On November 30th. It'll be out November 30th. But we're going to do film festivals before that. So it'll be at the New York Film Festival in October. It'll be at Toronto Film Festival in September. And then to the Canadians who are proud to be from Canada right now, yes. But yeah, November 30th.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Oh,
Okay, cool, I got you.
You've done us justice. That is beautiful work. My question for you is one of validation. You're an Academy Award-winning director, and with what transpired at the Academy Awards, the way
What transpired at the Academy Awards, bro? What you talking about? What you talking about? I had my eyes closed, I ain't see it. I'm sorry, bro. Continue.
It's a question of validation, the notion of achieving that and what it means to you. I'd like to know how you feel, the notion of being validated by that ceremony. Do you feel validated by that? Do you feel like that was?
No, I mean, I felt validated before that. One, I mean, I'll speak of Moonlight. Moonlight was crazy, man. This is me going back to the projects where I was born with my friends from film school and Brad Pitt's money and making, the most hood movie you could possibly make that also features a young black boy struggling with his sexuality. So the fact that we did it at all, I felt hella validated, you know? But then all the stuff that happened at the ceremony, I mean, I've spoken about this on podcasts and stuff. I felt a certain kind of way because, I've always doubted myself, and I've never believed that I was capable of making a film that could win Best Picture or even be at the Oscars. And so because of the way things happened, I didn't feel invalidated, but that was not the place for me to find validation. Instead,
That's right.
Instead, man, I was walking down the sidewalk the other day, and about 30 feet from me, I saw this young black woman. She recognized me, and she just stopped, and she put her hand over her mouth. And I had to walk past her, so I kept going towards her. And the closer I got, the more she did like this. And then she came over, and she just gave, never seen this woman in my life, gave me the biggest hug in the world. And she just said, thank you. And it's like, okay, that's the validation. Not that I'm seeking, but when I see that, that's when I know I got it, So the ceremony was what it was, man. It was what it was. I got my Oscar at home, I'll tell you that much, though.
Thank you.
Thank you, bro.
Hello, my name is Brianna McAdoo. I'm an actress and content creator and recent graduate of Howard University's drama department. But I wanted to just say thank you, and thank you. My question is, in the moments of when the world feels heavy and when you yourself are going through personal burdens that when you're in a space of brokenness and it just feels hard to create. So what are the things you do or the things, people you lean on, literature, whatever, what do you do? Because I'm here and I'm ready, but I just feel like there's a lot on my chest and I don't know where to start.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
I think you got to start with the page. For me, as a writer, I never felt, I always felt that I was in control of my career, of my work, because I knew that I could write. the things that I wanted to write. You know, it cost nothing but either a pen and a paper. I used to write everything by hand, or you know, if you have a laptop, whatever, or a phone, you can write. So that's all. You always have to remember that that's empowering. You know, you start with a blank page, you put 500 words on it, you got a story. You're good to go. A story that did not exist before. The other side of that, though, is because I'm not a very confident person. You know, in Moonlight would not have happened without my friends. So I'm going to embarrass the hell out of somebody because there is a dude here who I went to college with who, when I could not afford to go home for Thanksgiving because I'm poor and I'm from the projects and I went to school in Tallahassee. It was too far from Miami. I was not going home for Thanksgiving. This dude was like, no, you're not staying here. You're going home with me. And that dude is a producer in my company. We still work together to this day. I met this dude in 2001. And I will say, between Medicine for Melancholy and Moonlight, when I thought I cannot make another film, I'm done, he was one of the people who said, that is unacceptable. You know, you have too much to say. You have to make this film. So Mark, would you stand up, bruh? Please. This is Mark Sariat. I met this dude at college. I met him at college. And I gotta say, I never met somebody from a redneck town until I met this guy. I had all kinds of preconceptions and whatnot, but I went home with him and we've been best friends ever since. And I will say, I worked at Harpo Films for this director, Darnell Martin. Mark and I have been tied at the hip. Mark started working for Darnell's agent, literally a block from where I went to work. We would ride together to work every day, and now I have a film company, and there are 4 of us in it, and he is one of them. So, long story short, find folks who believe in you, make those people your friends, and then just keep with them. Just keep with them. Because when you can't get yourself up, they will get you up. All right?
All right. Hello, Mr. Jenkins. My name's Cottrell Guidry. I had the pleasure of asking you a question at your screening of Moonlight in West Hollywood at the Soho House, and I'm super excited to ask you more questions now.
Hopefully this is a better answer. I remember that night. Hopefully this is a better answer, bro.
No, you gave me an amazing answer to my question, and I'm sure it'll be great. My question for you is, did you have this project presented to you? It's a 2-part question, so this is the first question. Did you have this project presented to you, or did you choose it yourself? And then the second question is, was there fear in transcribing one of the greatest authors of all times?
Obviously, bro. Obviously.
Yeah, I understand.
You can't ask the question that way. I mean, obviously, yeah.
Oh, okay. So what did you do to get through that? To get through that fear, or wanting to bring the justice to this beautiful work?
Yeah. So the first part is a 2-part answer. This book came to me because a woman broke up with me, a young woman broke up with me, and in breaking up with me said, you need to read James Baldwin. And that was, I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. And so that was my introduction to James Baldwin. I'm just telling the truth. I'm just telling the truth. But then the second part was, there was no real pressure writing this because I didn't think I'd get to make it. I didn't have the rights to the book when I adapted it. You know, at some point you got to bet on yourself. So I was like, I'm just going to adapt this novel for free with my own money on my own time, and I'm going to send it to the Baldwin estate, who has never allowed anybody to make a film of Baldwin's work. But I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. You know, and I'm going to write Moonlight at the same time. And I said, I'm just going to start doing stuff. I'm just going to start doing it all. I was 6 years removed from making Medicine for Melancholy. I was like, I just got to start doing stuff. And so I adapted this book without the rights to it. And so there was no pressure, because for me, it was just like a blank page. I was just working. And then once Moonlight happened, the rights became available. And then I thought, oh, I've always said I have to be the same person I am now in success, you know, that I was in struggle. And in struggle, I wanted to really adapt this book and make it into a film. So that's what I'm going to go off and do. So it was all self-generated in a certain way, except for when that girl broke up with me. She said, you need to read James Baldwin. A true story. And we friends now. I mean, we cool, but... But back then it hurt, but then I opened, you know, I started reading Fire Next Time, and I was like, okay, she right.
Hi, Miss Mr. Jenkins. My name is Avery. I'm 14 years old and I'm starting high school in the fall. I got accepted into Baltimore School of the Arts in the film program. I want to be a director. What advice would you give me?
Thank you for the question. One, you're already ahead of the game because I didn't get into this until I was like 21, 22. There just happened to be a film school at the place where I was attending school, attending college. So I'm glad you're getting a head start on it. I think you have to follow your heart, tell the stories that you really want to tell. But the biggest advice I give to someone who is definitely as young as you, because usually I get that question for people who are 22 and graduating undergrad, is to be patient with yourself. Just be really patient, People think, oh, Barry Jenkins is an overnight sensation. I'm 38 years old, You were, 13, 14, something like that? So I think you should be proud that you got into this school. I imagine it's very difficult to get into. And take that pride and that energy and just remember that you are good enough. And just be patient with yourself and just keep trying to find your voice. And just write. And then find folks who appreciate your writing and just write some more. All right? Good luck with that. It's like the first week of school, right?
Hello, Mr. Jenkins. So I'm a senior at Amherst College. I'm a theater and dance and black studies double major. So James Baldwin is quite familiar to me. So I'm an actor, and I was wondering, because I imagine you've had to collaborate in terms of like adaptations for quite a while now, and I wonder, like, because I'm trying to figure out this whole collaborating with people thing as I go on my as I go on my artistic journey, and I was just wondering, like, what do you look for in your collaborators in order to bring these stories to life?
Yeah, I look for somebody who, the person's got to care as much as I do. I like to, the way I write my screenplays, I'm very detailed. I probably overwrite my screenplays. I overwrite my screenplays, I'll admit it. I don't give a damn. I overwrite my screenplays. Because when I give it to the actor, the producer, the production designer, the cinematographer, I want them to feel the things that I feel. I want them to really be able to viscerally experience the things that I put into the text. Because once I do that, I want them to take possession of it. So I think it is a collaboration, for sure. But I want people to not expect me to tell them every single thing that must be done. I want somebody to take the character and then bring it back to me and go, this is what this character needs to do. And then that creates, collaboration is a very cool word. I think it's more about a dialogue, a conversation between me and the actor, me and the cinematographer, me and the production designer. We're all just sort of trying to figure out, what's in my head, what's in your head, and then what needs to be in the character's heart. And I think once we have that groundwork, then it's just about being fluid, And I like to look people in the eye. So young actor, my friend, as you go out, look people in the eye and don't blink. And if you do those two things, man, you're gonna be good. Yeah.
Excellent.
But you gotta learn to work with people, bro. You mentioned collaboration like it was a dirty word, man. And it's like that is not gonna help you, man. Say collaborate, bro. Just say it, bro. Collaborate. Collaborate, bro. Now you gotta say it with some feeling. This lady behind you, she ready to say it. Help him say it, my dear.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, bro.
That's going to be our last question for the evening. Please join me in thanking Barry Jenkins.
Thank y'all.
For being, you were amazing. Thank you. Are you going to address the audience?
Thank you so much. You were amazing. Thank you. Absolutely.